don't think the show can ever really be what you call in any way predictable, because David and Dan, they've done so many of these seasons now. They know that an audience may be starting to second guess the formula in terms of we think that the narrative over 10 episodes is going to be this and it's going to finish like this. Not in terms of content and spoilers, but just in terms of the form and structure
and
of
the
it.
Pace of it, maybe.
The pace of it.
Yeah.
And now I think their big problem is to give people what they want, but give people a good deal of what they weren't expecting as well. People think they can second guess, but people never really want what they think they want. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just all about double crossing them, really.
The fact that a certain amount of characters are going to go every year. I don't know what the average is, but 8 to 10 characters what are going to go every year. So you start every season knowing that, and yet every death is a shock. Yeah. I think that is absolutely brilliantly done, isn't it?
It is.
It's going to happen now. They're always ahead of you as writers.
They get so emotionally invested in it. They genuinely mourn characters when they've gone, and I think that's what you want in terms of the pacing of it. Get rid of a character when people are loving them at their most, or when people have the greatest amount of hope for their future, is the most dramatically devastating way of doing it.
Are you afraid? You should be. You're in the great game now, and the great game is terrifying.
We are sinful creatures. We deserve death. We all do.
One way or another, the gift will be given. One way or another, a face will be added to the whole.
In that time, Bran has been in the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven. And throughout the whole series arc, there's been this kind of inkling at the back of these mystical powers he has, whether it be just walking into his wolf or touching a weirwood tree and having a strange sort of vision. But now he's with the king of all visions, Mr. Max von Sydow, or aka the Three-Eyed Raven, who is teaching Bran how to hone his skills of green sight, which is the ability to harness the power of a weirwood tree to kind of see back in time or see forward in time. And the reason we didn't see Bran in season 5 was because he was just working through all that's involved with learning this skill. And when we see him at the beginning of season 6, he's by no means a professional yet, but he's well on his way to understanding what this power might be, how he can use it, and what use it'll be.
So they're developing these powers.
Yeah, there's some really exciting developments which the powers will lead to. We'll end up discovering some quite exciting new information about the world of Game of Thrones through Bran's talents.
You kind of find us in sort of a mixture of the elation of winning against Stannis and the disappointment of losing Sansa. Which has major repercussions, right. Particularly for Ramsay, because without her he can't produce an heir. Without an heir, which is Bolton and Stark, his position as heir to Winterfell is weakened dramatically, and Daddy's very, very annoyed with him for possibly being a bit too
giving
harsh.
her cause to run away, really.
Yeah.
He survived the fall. He is now in a place where he's sort of, I guess, in more of an assertive place.
Good.
Now that he's survived the fall, and from that point onwards, we just got to wait and see. We just don't know. I mean, I know, but yeah, we just got to wait and see.
Cool. And you'll go.
Yeah, more of the same. Character development in terms of all these different situations and all these different scenarios that you will see in the coming season are obviously going to change and develop these characters. So it's just about watching the growth and watching the development and where he is now and where he is at the end.
And it seemed for Arya, it's kind of a question of identity, isn't it?
Yeah, and really how committed she is to
her quest for vengeance.
Yeah, no, actually, to becoming no one, to not having her own secret agenda, and you know, she's got to leave all of that behind. She's got to leave all of her anger at the death of her father and mother and brother, and all of this. I don't know, all of this that she's worked up over the seasons, she's now got to let that go. And I guess this year you really find out whether she's willing to do that.
Well, I find it very interesting how after season 2, a lot of fans thought that Jaqen was just a friend and he was helping her, and then season 5 it had already changed a little bit. Because suddenly he wasn't too friendly with her. He was much more challenging, and season 6 this is going to continue. So and we still don't know if Jaqen's just helping her or if he has a secret agenda of his own, and what that is. So that's interesting.
Cool.
We get to the end of it, or do we?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
I think, well, for High Sparrow, season 6 just builds and builds and builds in his quest for world domination. And there's all kinds of questions that come up, whether that's it for Cersei. Has she had all the punishment she's going to get?
Which was quite spectacular, wasn't
it? Yeah. Can I top that in season 6? What happens to Marjorie? And what happens to Tommen as in his relationship with the High Sparrow? So it's, for me as an actor, it was a very exciting time to get to the end of season 5 and not know where your character is going to go. And to discover that there was that and more to come was very exciting.
What can we tell you? So you've left us in season 5 with our lives, basically Melisandre and Davos's lives in turmoil. Our reason for living and our reason for being in the show is gone. So basically, you either dramatically lose these characters, or they go on to do something else.
As far as my own character goes, the build-up of her character sort of finally leads to like more of a revelation of her background. We see a little bit more colors to her character, which is really nice for me, because I've always been so stern and so fanatic and so sure of myself, and now of course my faith is crumbling down.
She's beginning to question her beliefs.
Yes, and that's of course it's nice for an actor to play doubt instead of being so sure of yourself.
I would imagine as well their relationship between the two characters is going to be put under a strain when Davos finds out about what happened exactly.
In a bizarre way, yes and no, but in a bizarre way. They are both in a very strange position at the beginning of this. They obviously have something hugely in common with each other through Stannis, and they're both slightly lost in a weird way. Her faith is shaken. My reason for being part of this is gone as well. So just logically, that's going to, in a strange way, bring them slightly closer together, I think, as well as the fact that Davos, when we find him, doesn't know what happened to Shireen, apart from the fact that Shireen is gone. So the audience at the beginning of 6 is where we find it at the end of 5 is going to be looking kind of going, when is this going to resolve? So there's that to look forward to as well.
剧情故事瞬息万变，主演们对自己角色的发展也是莫测难定。而由于小说创作进度缓慢，《权力的游戏》第6季拍摄更是首次从原著中完全独立出来，率先与观众见面。原著与剧作的正式分家，无疑给新一季的剧集创作带来前所未有的难度。不过剧透无门的神秘气息，却是令新一季悬念激增，让影迷和观众充满期待。
Yeah, well, I read the books, so I was always used to knowing what was going to happen next and being quite smug about that. But it was a real, it was a bit scary when we suddenly, because at the beginning of season 6, we're still just at the end of the books where he's in the cave and all of that stuff, and then we kind of push off from there. And so that was really exciting because I had no idea what was coming next, and now we're all in the same boat of it being completely impossible to tell what's going to happen. But it's very exciting. I mean, you know, anything could happen.
It's its own thing, you know. George has, he's got to write another one, I think, for there to be another series. But I think they're their own thing, you know. And so I'm just as excited to read the last book as anyone else. But all my stuff and all my sort of I guess source material comes from the scripts. Right. I don't really use the books anymore.
For me personally, I remember going into season 4 before I got sent the scripts. Dan and David told me everything for you is off book this year, and I think most of what's happened to Gilly, at least I don't know so much about Sam, has really, really diverted from the books for a while now, and I, for that reason, stopped reading them.
Strange what desire will make foolish people do.
The great victory I saw in the flames, all of it was a lie.
What a wicked game you play. Make me feel this way. What a wicked thing to do.
Every one of us is poor and powerless, yet we can overthrow an empire.
You're in the great game now, and the great game is terrifying.
You have the fans who were fans from the beginning with the books, who like to hold something over the people who watch the show in terms of things that they know. And now everybody's in the dark, so there is an added element of mystery, which I think is good. Any hype, any kind of intrigue and things like that is always going to be good for a show, and it keeps everybody on their toes.
I think there's a kind of I don't know. I suppose it was more interesting for Dan and David to write stories that weren't in the books, and that huge sense of responsibility they must have, but also that sense of freedom they had as well to take those characters somewhere else. And I think these scripts are really good. Very good. Really good.
And I told him what I've just told you. I said I really don't want to be distracted by the character in the book. And George did say, he said, I know what you mean. He said, from watching the show, and he is finding a bit of, now to what level I don't know, but he's finding that our voices and what we look like are influencing his writing. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't influence the story, but certainly influences the nuance of the characters. I mean, if we're doing a job properly, it should, I think, in a sense.
There was a huge crossover at the start just because, we knew that we had that fan base of book readers, so we had to be faithful to them. But I think that now book readers have come to accept the show for what it is, and we've got a whole army of fans who are just show fans. I think that makes David and Dan feel more comfortable about, taking liberties.
I think it changes the shape of the series, definitely, because there's the plot points in the book that we hit each time, but now they can make those plot points themselves that lend themselves better to being on screen. George could write for pages and pages about a feast. When we shoot it, it's like half a page, but then we now can make sure that only half a page worth of stuff goes on. I guess they can just make it more adaptable for TV now.
And I think that's what book fans probably want from the show anyway. They kind of want to see a slightly different interpretation of it, which is what they get.
从改编经典 IP 到原创剧集故事， 自2011年开播以来，《权力的游戏》这部现象级热剧早已成为了世界范围内粉丝们关注和热议的焦点。剧中对人性两极的探讨，对权力和欲望的剖析，让观众欲罢不能。而身为亲历其中的主演团队，采访中聊起剧集创作，竟也如同粉丝一般兴奋和激动。
It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's great.
I never expected this to become so huge and to have such an impact on.
It is a cultural phenomenon. There's not two ways about it. Oh, you can't open a newspaper without saying "Game of Coins" or "Game of this" or whatever pun on the name of the show. I mean,
and the coolest people watch it also. Obama and Jack Nicholson and Martin Scorsese and Snoop Dogg and all these people.
It's a bizarre leveler. I mean, like in my house, I've everything from my 15-year-old right up to and we all watch it together. And I mean, I occasionally have to put the hand out in front of the child's eyes, but I don't want them seeing my ass or yours.
I generally read what I feel anything that is related to my character would affect my character in any sense. Right. And then anything else I save for when I sit down and watch it with my popcorn,
Do you guys have conversations about the way the show's going?
Yeah, definitely all the time. I mean, we've got loads of time when we're not filming, when we're just sitting around waiting for things to happen. And
right.
Yeah, of course.
We speculate all the time.
Do you?
It's my favourite thing to do, to chat with like fans about what their what's the word?
Theories.
Yeah, what their theories are for the show, because we don't know the ending. No one tells us the
fans
ending.
always assume we know more than they do, and we just won't tell them. But it's not the case. I mean,
we only know the series that we're shooting, so it's that's my favourite thing to do. I love hearing what other people have to say about the show.
And do you have theories about like whether you'll be the last Stark standing?
No, just more theories about little things that we already know and like twists that we think are going to happen. Okay. And just characters that seem like underdogs where we all sit down and we go, yeah, but I think they're going to be around like last episode. And then we're like, yeah, actually, I think so.
And you know it's going to happen, and it's still, because of the way it's filmed, you still react and go, wow, wow, wow. I mean, it does have that gasp oh factor when you watch it.
Well, people come up to me all the time and talk to me in the third person, or greet me by saying Valar Morghulis on the streets, and so. But it's nice, you know. It's kind of it's very rare when you do television that you get a lot of feedback, because most of the time it's you film something and then when it airs, that's already like 6-9 months later, and people don't necessarily recognize you in the streets. But I mean, with Game of Thrones, it's definitely different.
I was in a well-known donut franchise shop, and what, and the guy who makes these donuts, he gave me a donut, like a free donut perk, and so I was going, oh, thank you very much. He said, I really like your show. I said, oh, thank you very much. That's very kind. Thanks for the donut. He went, yeah, I really love it. Your character, not so much. That's what he said. Well, I've got the donut now.
Absolutely, I'm off it.
Yeah, but how many donuts would you have got if you were, I don't know, Brienne of Tarth or something?
Oh, that's really... yeah. It's just so unfortunate the way that's worked out. He's given the least amount of donuts to the man that they appreciate the most.
I was just thinking, actually, in terms of that, how invested people get in characters' deaths or survivals. I remember in season 4 when there was an episode where it looked like Gilly might die when the wildlings attack Molestown, and people were coming up to me in the street and being like, "I'm so glad you're not dead." And it was I was getting all these text messages from friends being like, "Thank God you're all right." And for a moment I was like, I thought something really bad had happened in London.
Yeah.
Like I didn't. Well, I'd avoided some kind of terrible attack, and then I was like, oh no, it's just that people are really, really invested in the show.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful. It's really nice to feel that much enthusiasm for a story that you're a part of.
Last season was great. This season needs to be better. And it really never fails to live up to expectation.
It was a very different season to the previous seasons, and there were moments where it felt like working on a completely different show.
It's not like any other. This series is incredible.
I want to know what's going to happen with the dragons, you know.
Because as long as there's a balance across the show and everybody has enough of what they want to keep them going, I think it's fine to have that balance.